Thanks for joining us today on Indivisible. Welcome, America. Today I've got on as a guest running in Maryland's District 2 for Congress, Jim Simpson. He's challenged by opponents Johnny Salling and Tim Fazenbaker. Jim, welcome to the program.
Hey, John, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Well, we're proud to have you. I know that you're out there raising money. You've got an election coming up here. Tell us how things are going there.
Well, we're working it hard. It's totally bizarre in this unprecedented time when, we have the shutdown and the governor has supposedly reopened the economy, but he left it up to individual county managers, county leaders to decide. So, of course, our county, which is led by this radical leftist, has decided to stay shut down pretty much, for until who knows when. And so we're doing a lot of phone calls, and we've sent out mailers, and we're doing texts, and we're doing a lot of Facebook posting. I'm writing a lot of stuff on my campaign blog site. So we're doing basically whatever we can do. I've got signs up all over the district. And, that's really what we can do. We can't really do door knocking yet.
Sure.
We're limited in that sense. And then plus it's a mail-in ballot. So you have to make sure people understand that they have to take their ballot, fill it out, mail it in, sign the outside of it, which really bugs the heck out of me, and then trust the mail to get it to, get it to the Board of Elections. It's crazy. It's really crazy.
Yeah, I don't trust the mail-in ballot system at all. And obviously, we've got fraud all over the country that some people say isn't happening, and yet we keep seeing proof day after day after day of voter fraud. So it's obviously happening, right?
So it absolutely is. And with the voter rolls as dirty and messed up as they are, it's very easy for the wrong people to get a hold of dead voter records, people who have left the state, and vote on their behalf without them knowing it. I was so unhappy to find out that my father voted Democrat. He never would have done that when he was alive, that kind of thing.
Oh, Jim, you're killing me, man.
It's literally nuts.
Let me ask you a question. Now, you're Baltimore's second district there, District 2. That's Elijah Cummings district?
No, that's District 7. District 2 is probably one of the most gerrymandered districts in the United States. It covers slivers of 5 different counties, and literally it has been gerrymandered almost by household. It's really disgraceful what they did. Even Democrats don't like it. The Democrat Party joined the Republican Party after the 2010 redistricting to sue the state Democratic Party because they had gerrymandered it so badly that Baltimore City and other black areas were getting, diminished power in the redistricting. We all lost. It's a way to just literally strip us of our voting rights.
Yeah, it's a loser all the way across the board. But I got to tell you, Baltimore in particular, and we got into this discussion on the phone the other day, it really troubles me because in the areas that are run by and we've seen this all over the country in cities run by Democrats, it seems like wherever there's a Democrat running the show, we see misery, we see poverty, we see sanctuary cities, we see, give all the rights and all of our tax dollars to illegal aliens and screw the Americans. It's getting to the point where, we know that common sense has been thrown out the window, obviously. And now they're trying to make it so that I guess we're second class citizens. I don't know what the goal is here. What's that?
That is the goal.
Yeah. And by the way, for those of you who don't know Jim has been, speaking, authoring books, involved in activism for over 19 years now. Tell our audience a little bit about that journey for you and what's it involved, Jim.
Okay. Well, honestly, I had my epiphany about what is going on in this country in 1987. I was in the middle of reading Robert Conquest's famous book, The Great Terror, which discussed Stalin's terror in Russia. And I realized at that time that the hard left in this country was attempting to subvert our country and bring it to that conclusion. And I'll tell you, I didn't sleep for 3 days. And I researched in depth about the American Communist Party and the left movement, and I got to know it very well. Now,
sure.
I graduated I got out of college. I taught for a short while, and then I got a job at the White House Office of Management and Budget, where I worked as an economist and a budget examiner under Presidents Reagan, H.W. Bush, and Clinton. And I left shortly after Clinton started to start my own private business, simply because I felt an entrepreneurial bent, and I am not a bureaucrat, and it was stifling and smothering me. So I left, and I started this business. That business became modestly successful. I was written up on the front page of the Washington Times and the Washington Post business sections in 1996, and I went on to make that. But then in 2001, we had 9/11, and that's when I decided I could no longer sit quiet. I had been writing occasionally before then, but after 9/11, I said, "Oh, I've really got to step up and start letting people know the things that I've learned over the last 15 years." And because, at that time, I recognized we were losing our country. And now we're seeing in front of our eyes everything that I knew was going on back then, but it was not public. Now it's public. And come out of the closet, and they are showing just how willing they are to try to kill us.
Sure. And let me just add real quick to that. It's interesting that you brought up 9/11 as kind of the turning point for you. For me personally, I started getting involved more politically about that time. Obviously, as a veteran, I'm concerned about the Islamic Jihad and the Caliphate. Yeah. So, and I had a friend who was sent over by George W. Bush. He was appointed as a civilian leader to work with General Petraeus on the surge. And then, of course, Obama came in and screwed the whole thing up. So we had our foots on the neck of the Caliphate and the jihadists at that time. And as soon as Obama got elected, he destroyed everything.
He did, deliberately.
Yeah, and it wasn't until President Trump came on the scene where he put his foot back on the Caliphate and started going after the jihadists where they lived. But go ahead with your story. I just wanted to include that because 9/11, I think, was a turning point for a lot of Americans.
It was.
They can identify with that.
Absolutely. And so I began writing part-time, because I still had my business, but I was spending an inordinate amount of that time. It was cutting into my business. And finally, in 2005, I just left the business. I said, okay, I'm done. And I had been merged with the factory that produced my product, and I told them, listen, you can have it, I'm done. And I began just writing full time, and I devoted myself and have devoted myself to our cause full time ever since, with or without pay. It's become my life's work, my life's mission, and I intend to keep it that way. And in 2020, I realized that we're getting shut down right and left. I've spoken all over the country. I've been threatened.
Sure.
I've had events shut down. And I decided, this doesn't work. Our First Amendment rights are being literally threatened.
Right.
To get in there, to retake the House of Representatives, keep the Senate, make sure President Trump gets reelected. And then we got to really begin turning this ship around, because the left is deliberately facing it right toward the rocks.
Let me ask you a quick question, Jim. in regards to the shutdowns of the events and things like that you were speaking about.
Yeah.
Are any of these on college campuses?
Any of what on college campuses?
In any of your events being shut down?
Oh, I have never been invited to speak at a college campus.
Okay.
I spoke at the University of Indiana's at the public library in the town where the University of Indiana is located, and many students showed up.
Bloomington.
Bloomington, yes, in Bloomington.
Yes.
And I was there with my good friend Don Barnett of the Center for Immigration Studies, and we were supposed to have a debate with a lady who ran the refugee resettlement program from the State Department, and an attorney and another person from one of the private contractors that resettles refugees. But at the last minute, this is the thing that they do, and don't forget, this is a taxpayer paid public official from the State Department. At the very last minute, she pulled a bait and switch and told them all to cancel. And so when we went up there, Don and I were flown out there at somebody's expense. This whole thing was set up. The only person that faced us was this young female attorney. And people in the audience said, "Oh, that's so unfair. You're the two of you ganging up against this one attorney." And I said, "Listen, this lady from the State Department pulled a bait and switch at the last minute. It was the most disgraceful thing I've seen, and that's how your taxpayer dollars are being spent." And there was a whole back row of kids with signs and all kinds of stuff. And I looked back at them and I just said, "Grow up."
Yeah.
Grow up.
Yeah. Let me ask you something. How many people were supposed to be there at that event?
Well, a lot of people went. The library auditorium was full. So
okay.
well attended event. But the point was that we were going to have a serious debate with an official from the State Department who runs the refugee resettlement program, and she deliberately tried to sabotage it.
Now, was that because she was trying to just shut down your free speech?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
She was trying to make it a non-event.
Okay.
And not give us the opportunity to counteract her narrative, because I would have slaughtered her.
Sure. Yeah, she didn't want to hear what you had to say. But what I'm getting at is I'm trying to point into a direction here.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like it's very similar to, my friend Charlie Kirk being shut down when he goes to speak at a college campus.
Oh, yeah.
Or, any other conservative speaker,
yeah.
That goes and is scheduled to speak. And then the next thing you know, the campus administration doesn't want to deal with the problem.
Yep.
So instead of policing the event and stopping people from, harassing the speaker, okay, right. Instead they just cancel the event.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not the answer.
No, that is certainly not the answer. And the other thing that they do is allow the event to go on and then give Antifa free reign, where kids burn things and destroy things, and that becomes the focus point of the media, and you don't even get to see what the speaker had to say.
Sure.
It's a disgrace.
It really is a disgrace. And it's one of the things that, aside from the fatherless issue in America, which we talk about constantly because we think it ties into all these other problems we're having, the breakup of the family in America and how it's killing us. This is the other issue that is really near and dear to my heart, destroying free speech. Okay. I refuse to tolerate that, and I will battle that every single day. Yeah. I will call it out and expose it on this show, and everybody knows that. So I'm sorry that you went through that, but
I went through that a lot.
Fighting. Yeah, well, I know you do. I want you to keep fighting through that, Jim.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
Please.
Yeah.
We have to have that.
It's one of the reasons that I decided to run for Congress, because I realized that the only way we're going to do this is to shut these people down, is to prevent these people, haul Facebook and Twitter in there and force them to stop censoring our speech on their platforms. We have to do
Right.
that with Google. We have to do that with all of them. I couldn't do that as a private citizen. As a U.S. congressman, I can do that. And that's
Sure.
one of the first things I'm going to be going after is this effort to stifle our speech. Because really, I wrote an article at the Center for Security Policy, and the title was Truth and the Ability to Speak It Under Direct Attack. And I urge your viewers to go look that up, because that describes the entire strategy, where it came from, who invented it, how it got mainstreamed into our society, because it was originally a Soviet communist plot to silence us, going all the way back to Lenin. But I trace the people and the organizations that brought that to the United States and how it all works. And literally, it is not merely free speech. It is the ability to speak the truth, because as you know, you and I, we base our opinions on fact. We don't base our opinions on just some highfalutin ideology or some fleeting thought or emotion that we have.
Or feelings.
Or feelings, which is what the left does. It's all they do.
Yeah, I base my opinion on facts and what I can see and what I can hear.
Yes.
Now, was that the National Center for Public Policy Research?
No, that was the Center for Security Policy.
Okay, because I work with Justin Danhoff and Stacey Washington over at the National Center.
Yep.
And by the way,
great folks.
But by the way, to our viewers, President Trump is crafting an executive order to stop Twitter from censoring free speech as we speak. Yeah. And I know that he's going to start following through on his promise that if people on the left want to continue to try to censor free speech, he's going to stop funding on these college campuses. And I approve of that. Everyone should be allowed to speak. More debate, more thought, not less.
Yep. No, I believe, and I'd go a step further. I'd say college campuses that accept any federal dollars should not get a penny unless and until they reorient their college curriculum to helping people obtain careers and diplomas that will actually help them in the future. Not
like trade schools,
radical left,
trade schools
studies and all these other false, phony, left-wing diplomas that are useless.
Yeah, there's so many opportunities out there. We need to bring trade schools back in full force.
Trade schools, yes.
Because, plumbers, electricians, we need those kind of people. And they're great paying jobs. And, these kids are getting out of college with all this debt, with a degree that they're not going to be able to get a job in.
Yeah.
And then they sit in their mom and dad's basement wondering why they can't get a job.
They go work at Starbucks.
Yeah, and then they blame President Trump, who has nothing to do with it.
Right.
Okay? It's people like Obama that lied to them and put them on this track. And anyway, by the way, if you've ever read Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, and this is to my audience, you should be very aware of the tactics of the left and why and how they're trying to destroy the United States from within.
Yep.
I also attribute that to stealth jihad.
That's true.
Which I post about all the time, as you know, if you know me.
Yep.
So moving on, Jim, you wrote for Defense Watch. Tell my audience a little bit about that.
Well, David Hackworth was, until he died in 2006 of cancer, was one of the most, if not the most, decorated living soldiers. He had fought in World War II, starting at, I believe, the age of 15. He snuck in by lying about his age, fought through Korea, and fought through Vietnam, all in combat. And he wrote a number of books. His most famous one is About Face, where he slammed the career, you call it perfumed princes, who led and who led the Vietnam War, and he said the way they did it was, it was a losing battle. Now, I primarily blame the politicians for that, especially Lyndon Johnson, who I think deliberately prevented us from winning for reasons only he knows, and I don't know where he is today, but whether he's upstairs or downstairs, but he really, but so Hackworth became very famous, quite a bit of a gadfly, because he stuck, a stick in the eye of the military brass. But everybody in the military read Defense Watch, and that was the first big organization I wrote for, and I wrote dozens and dozens of articles of them between 2002 and 2006 when he died, and then the whole enterprise kind of collapsed. Yeah, I mean, my national security has always been one of my primary focuses, going all the way back to when I was working at OMB, and my interest before that, and my avocation since that, reading all kinds of books about military intelligence, the Soviet Union, the various communist movements around the world. So, an area of expertise, shall we say.
Yeah, and it's an important one. National security is very important to me as an American and as a military veteran, and it's important to a lot of people that watch this show.
Yeah.
So, also, one thing I wanted to ask you, tell the audience a little bit about your website, crisisnow.net.
Okay, well, crisisnow.net, one of those things I've never really had time to build a full website for my writings, because I'm usually writing for this, that, or the other publication. But I've collected most of my archive material at crisisnow.net, and it has archives of my writing at Breitbart, Daily Caller, The Federalist, Center for Security Policy, Accuracy in Media, WorldNet Daily, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's many others that aren't included, but
sure,
those are the big ones. And of course, then links to my books on Amazon.
Yeah, listen, I it's important for the voters, for the people of Maryland, for the people of the United States to get to know who Jim Simpson is, what Jim Simpson stands for, what he believes in. Tell me about a couple things that are on your mind for your district in Maryland, District 2.
Yeah, well, the Attorney General of Maryland just came out to join the coalition fighting to halt immigration arrests at state courthouses. That's the kind of garbage that we face with these people.
Who is he? Call him out. What's his name?
Brian Frosh. Brian Frosh is his name.
Okay.
And he's an awful person. And this is the kind of things, sorry, I had to click back to the page. This is the kind of thing that we face on a daily basis. We have the entire political infrastructure of the left in Maryland fighting on behalf of illegal aliens, criminals, and everybody that threatens this state.
Yeah.
It's uncanny. You mentioned, inner city leaders kowtowing to illegal aliens. And they do. Black inner city leaders kowtow to illegal aliens, and they are given an open door to come in and steal businesses without facing all of the required regulations that legitimate businesses have to engage in, so they can, of course, charge a much lower fee and undermine those legitimate businesses. That's destroying black inner city businesses. And to the extent that they even still exist in the face of massive Democrat regulation and massive Democrat taxation, then they got to face this.
Right. They're also destroying the jobs of those black individuals who live in that district.
Yes. It's absolutely beyond description.
Yeah.
One of the things that I am going to very, very aggressively fight, because those people are actually, they're violating federal law. And not only do I want to see Brian Frosch and people like him thrown out of office, I want to see them prosecuted for violating federal law.
Yes.
It's a disgrace. And if
Yes.
we do that in one place, we start, I mean, it's in California. I call Maryland California East, because Maryland does exactly what California does, and just in microcosm. And it's
real quick, Jim, the walk away movement.
Yeah.
Okay. For our Black American brothers.
Yep.
There are so many Black Americans that are walking away from the Democratic Party right now because they see the truth. Yep. They're seeing that the media has been lying to them for years, all the way back to the slavery lies and the Ku Klux Klan and all these other lies. It was always the Democratic Party.
Yep.
Okay. So, here we are, 2020, a city like Baltimore, your district, you've got Black jobs on the loss, Black businesses on the loss, okay, because of Black leaders who are in bed with these special interests to destroy our country.
Yep.
Okay. And then on top of that, I want to go back to this for a second. And I've been following what's happening in Maryland very closely. I don't remember the district, but there's a district in Maryland where I saw story after story after story on Laura Ingraham, and I think Sean Hannity covered it as well, where you'd have an illegal alien who should have been locked up and deported, but definitely locked up, and they released him, okay? He went back out and killed somebody else within a couple days.
Yep.
It's happened in the same district over and over and over and over again, and these are Americans being killed.
Yeah, that's probably Baltimore City. That's probably District 7, Elijah Cummings' former district. Yeah, and that's not merely happening in Baltimore, as you know, it's happening all over the country.
Yes.
Yeah, they literally, and you look at it, they're letting criminals out of jail who go on almost immediately to commit crime.
Yes.
And I had Chuck Jenkins, who is the Frederick County Sheriff, on a webinar with me with Sheriff Richard Mack, who's the head of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, and 3 other folks to talk about the shutdown and the negative consequences of it. And they're talking about, we're letting criminals out of jail who immediately go on and commit crime, and crime is stepped up as a result. Meanwhile, we, especially people in nursing homes, where half of the deaths from this crisis, from this COVID, have been caused, are forced to shut down.
Right.
The same rationale. The criminals have to go out so they won't spread the disease in jail. Meanwhile, they're protected in jail. However, we on the outside, who are open to the world, have to huddle inside, especially in nursing homes, and they send people who are sick that were in the nursing homes with COVID back to the nursing homes.
Yeah.
That's criminal. Criminal negligence.
Yeah, and here's the other part of that. And I ask this question all the time now because I love to hear it. And when you ask it, you hear silence. And that is this. I thought the masks worked. Okay? So if these masks work, why can't we put them on prisoners in prison and separate them in different units if they're sick within the prison?
Yeah.
Why are we releasing them into the communities of innocent Americans where they're committing more crimes and killing people? It makes no sense.
I believe it's part of their chaos strategy. I wrote about
it. Again, it's Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals.
Yep.
Okay. And real quick, we're running out of time, Jim.
Yeah.
Tell our audience about the swamp report real quick.
Okay. Well, it's actually it's a private newsletter. You can subscribe by sending me your name and your email and your phone number and where you live.
Okay. And how would you tell our audience to do that?
You could send it to my Jim at jimsimpsonforcongress.com email address. We have I put it out since the election. I haven't had much time to do it, so it's come out like once a month. But also we have monthly webinars. Last week we had Catherine Engelbrecht of True the Vote, a longtime friend of mine and just an amazing person who has been the front lines of the battle along with Judicial Watch in cleaning our voter rolls and trying to maintain the integrity of our elections. And for that, she was investigated by something like 7 federal agencies, sued by the Democratic Party, the state Democratic Party, lost her business, just astonishing stuff, simply because she created this nonpartisan organization that was very effective at stopping vote fraud.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, that's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Real quick, give us that website one more time. It's Jim Simpson?
That's my website is jimsimpsonforcongress.com.
JimSimpsonforcongress.com, people. You can go to his website now and take a look and see what Jim, you've heard a lot today about what he stands for, what's important to him in Maryland's 2nd District. I want to thank you for coming on today, Jim. We were glad to have you.
Thank you so much for having me, John. It's been great. I really appreciate it. Really.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you, folks, for joining us this afternoon on another episode of Indivisible. God bless you.
God bless you. Thank you.